Right then, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a video which looks at who is to blame. Is it Ruben Amorim or is it the players? And we've got a lot of data that we're going to go through, and we've got a lot of reasons, and I'm going to explore all of those reasons. So strap in and let's get straight into it. Now, this is a historic low for Manchester United. It's not just a slump, it is our statistically worst performance of historic nature in the Premier League. It's the sort of year that we've had where fans probably hope they wouldn't witness it in their lifetime, and that isn't hype, that's facts. And we're going to look at the facts of that in a sec. Now, in the league, it's been a record poor performance. We currently sit in 16th place. We are on 39 points. We have had a total of 17 defeats in the league so far, and that could end up as high as 19 defeats, which is, I'm almost lost for words for how bad that is as a league campaign. When Amorim took over, we were 14th in the table. Like I said, we're currently 16th. We could finish as low as 17th, depending on how Spurs do in their final couple of games and if they outpoint us. And we've only managed 42 goals in those 36 games, just a little over a goal a game. When you see the teams at the top of the table, the places where United should be, Liverpool, for example, scored nearly double the amount of goals that we have. And we haven't even hit that mythical 40-point mark. You know, we are currently in the 30s. And I don't know if you'll see United win either of our remaining two games. So we could end up with 39 or 40 points. Enough that would have seen you relegated in some other seasons. And the stats aren't just shocking, they're absolutely shameful. This is Manchester United, reduced to a punchline. One of the richest, most storied clubs on earth have just put up a season which invites and sits alongside comparisons with some of the league's worst teams. Every awful milestone that could be set went out and was set. And it's a season that shouldn't be forgotten. Even if we manage to secure Champions League football and win a trophy this season, you can't wash away what's just happened. Now, part of the answer does sit with the man in the dugout, right? He arrived amid much fanfare and high hopes. A young progressive coach with a glowing reputation from Sporting. United's brass bet big on him to try and steer the ship after things went west under Erik ten Hag. And Amorim, well, he obviously made his own bet. I don't know at what point, but he clearly decided Europa League was the thing to double down on as a way out of this mess. And at first glance, that European focus might have paid off. United have pulled off some incredible comebacks in the Europa League, notably against Lyon, some brilliant performances against Athletic Bilbao. But the days following those absolute emotional highs and thrillers, we go out and lose to Wolves, to Bournemouth, to anybody who wants it, actually. You know, West Ham. We put in listless, toothless, downright pathetic performances. Now, it does appear that Amorim is absolutely prioritising cup glory and the Champions League ticket that comes with it. But the bread and butter of the Premier League has really fell by the wayside. And that league collapse isn't entirely on him, and it isn't entirely because he's eyed Europa League. I think he's put out teams that were capable of doing significantly better than they've actually gone on and done. So that's something that we'll talk about in a bit with the players. But the team has often looked unprepared, physically spent when it's come to the weekend. Amorim has clearly struggled to adapt to the unforgiving tempo and depth of the English game. And, you know, remember at Sporting, they were dominant. Losses were rare. But United have lost 13 games out of his 25 in the league. More than 50%. That's an incredible amount of games to lose. And you can see the desperation in some of his decisions. You know, yes, there's been blunders by, notably, Andre Onana's had a couple. You've seen him drop him. You've seen him making what seemed like quite emotional decisions at time. He threw the likes of Bayindir and Amas in for the Newcastle game. We saw, Bayindir commit a bit of a howler for his own and gift Newcastle a goal. We've seen some senior reliable players, Ugarte and Mazraoui, just have brain farts and give people goals. And that kind of chaos has summed up this entire sort of season, I think. Amorim's been clearly thrashing around for solutions. There's not a lot stuck. But it has worked in Europa. Maybe he's been too Europa focused. Like, we are undefeated in Europe. And success isn't guaranteed. We might go and win the trophy, but we might not. Now, I think the short and long of it is Amorim needs time. He was hired to multitask, to turn it around, to try and chase European football, to do what he could with the season. He obviously decided to stick all his chips on one spin of the wheel, Europa League, while everything else got put on the back burner. He won't be able to do that next season. A big club manager has to walk and talk at the same time. He's going to have to do Premier League, and hopefully he'll have to do Champions League as well next year. I know he didn't want to come mid-season. It's quite clear why, I think. But the honeymoon period has absolutely evaporated because of how this season has gone, and people will be looking in August, is he ready? And I don't think we'll even get the perfect transfer window. I think that's going to hinder him somewhat. This is now where it goes, right, Ineos, you lot have got to massively deliver. But again, I ain't blaming him entirely. There's multiple authors of this story. And if you think sacking Amorim, like sacking Erik ten Hag, would magically fix everything, you're absolutely kidding yourself. These players, highly paid players, are, for me, the primary culprits of this catastrophe. Apart from, obviously, the malaise and neglect that we've suffered for 20 years of Glazer ownership, these players have not been doing their job. You start with Marcus Rashford. At the start of the season, I said this forward line is not good enough for Manchester United. It doesn't have enough goals in it. You're asking for best seasons out of every player, and some players to have done things that they've never done before. A few years ago, Marcus Rashford was United's saviour. Homegrown talent coming through. Career best seasons. Last year and this year, anonymous. And I don't know for sure what's happened. But people that do know have said he had to go. So I don't know if that comes out yet. I don't know if that comes out ever. I don't know what it is. But whatever it was undermining the manager. He was ghosted by Amorim until they could get him out on loan at Aston Villa. So he clearly isn't somebody that Amorim wants around or Ineos wants around. So you had a bad attack, and then it was made worse by Rashford went away on loan, Anthony went away on loan, and as bad as they've been, they both still did contribute at least a couple of goals, or in Rashford's case, quite a lot of goals. And they weren't replaced at all. Especially when you lose Ahmad as well, they're not replaced at all come January. Yes, Rasmus Højlund, which I've spoken about extensively, was meant to be the next big thing. We were looking for him to kick on, and he didn't kick on. He's actually gone backwards, and his return in the Premier League is laughable. Double figures seems so far away from something he's able to produce, let alone 20 goals a season. The end of the season's coming with his confidence looking non-existent. He isn't running, he isn't working, he doesn't look capable of finishing anything. And the hefty price tag means that people expect a hell of a lot more than they're getting out of him. And the similar thing can be said for Garnacho, except that, he came from the academy. He's got a different profile because of he come through the academy. But the likes of Onana, I thought he was very good last year. This year has been miles off the pace. The club can't look to Bruno Fernandes to carry the can week in, week out. But these players haven't been good enough. Casemiro in recent weeks has been fantastic. He was iced just not used. There's been errors in pretty much every single player. Delot was had, up until the last few weeks before he got injured, he was abysmal in this system. Whether he didn't quite understand his role or what, I don't know, but he was awful. And these players have seen off multiple managers. Lindelof and Luke Shaw and Rashford, they've been here, not quite from Louis van Gaal like Shaw has been, but Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Rangnick, Ten Hag, now Amorim. All these managers between a lot of these players, Maguire as well, although I don't think he's quite been as bad. The same core issues persist. The common denominator is not that all of these coaches are bad coaches, because they're not. I think the common denominator is the club has, the interview with Tom Keane the other day, so eye-opening that this club did not, there is an illusion of competency because of the badge. But it's fucking run by amateurs, and it looks like it's been run by amateurs. How have you managed to spend $1 billion and hardly any of it is on the pitch? The problems in our squad run so much deeper than just a particular formation or a particular tactic. For all the people saying these players, they don't understand how to play 3-4-3. Cool, they didn't understand how to play 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 either. So don't make excuses for them. What they're putting out is not fucking good enough, and some of these players are factually not good enough. And he's spoken about it this weekend, actually, when he said it might be time for different persons if he can't change the culture. But the rot at Manchester United is cultural. It is ingrained complacency and incompetence that has festered ever since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. United thought that the name would carry, and they focused on off-the-pitch activity and sponsorship activation and signing players because of how many Instagram followers that they had, and not trying to build anything that was sustainable for the future. I did a video with Joe, which has just come out on Wednesday, where I said, when you look at just the things that have happened over this last decade, it's almost criminal incompetence. There was rumours of Rasmus Højlund and Anthony being available for significantly less money than what Manchester United paid for them. And the club that identified that they were worth X, yet went and paid Y. Well, that's poor leadership from the CEO to the head of negotiations to the scouting department to everybody. Because if you identify Anthony as being worth 30 million, the fuck are you doing signing a cheque for 90? Can you imagine doing that with a house? I want to go and buy a house, because a football player and a house are significant investments, one for a football club and one for an individual. If you went and did a survey on a house and it comes back, your house is worth 300 grand, and you go, sound, nice one, I'll give you 900. Your bank would sit you down and be like, excuse me, sir, are you doing fucking drugs? It makes no sense. Yet, meanwhile, that was the sort of thing that happened and persisted at Manchester United. And even though I've enjoyed Casemiro's time at Manchester United, spending that amount of money on that player and giving him that contract was not smart business, was it? Let's have it right. A lot of these players have overseen and had excuses made for them for all of these different fucking coaches. And when you look at the teams that have been successful in terms of their rebuild, they've done so through smart recruitment. And even when you look at Manchester United, when you look at what Sir Alex Ferguson oversaw, and you look at the legends that he had in that team, from Brian Robson, Paul McGrath, Norman Whiteside, some real big characters and genuine good footballers, man. Mark Hughes. Sir Alex knew that he needed to move on some of those big stars. Now, the wages might not have been the same sort of issue as they are now, but football has not changed anywhere near as much as what people want you to think. The issue with a lot of those players was injuries and the drinking culture, and Fergie wanted to smash that drinking culture and bring through a different mentality, and he did that by focusing a lot on and getting very lucky with the class of 92. But he added smartly. The likes of Steve Bruce, the likes of Gary Pallister, who ended up becoming Manchester United centre-half partnership for nearly a decade, bringing in smart Premier League proven, or at least First Division proven players like Dennis Irwin and Paul Parker to a greater or lesser extent as well. And just bolstering the side with smart people with good characters. And that 91-92 season, for those of you that aren't old enough to remember it, Manchester United were fucking boring. We could keep a clean sheet or two, but we couldn't score goals. And goals is what gets you over the line. And then we signed Eric Cantona 92-93, only because Dion Dublin, who we gambled quite hard on, paid £1 million for Dion Dublin. And we paid the same for Eric Cantona. Think about that. We went in on Dion Dublin thinking he was going to lead the line. I like Dion. I think he's a great bloke. Eric Cantona, he is not. And we got lucky with the signing of Cantona because his flair didn't suit Howard Wilkinson's fucking boring, dour style of football. But he was the right person to take us over the line. And then we made some really good signings for years beyond that. Roy Keane, he was at the club for 13 years following that. You look at the likes of then Andy Cole. And we added that to our youth. Recruitment is the number one thing. And then you look at the signings in 98 summer. Jordi Cruyff did his bit. Oh, obviously it wasn't his dad. But Dwight York, Jaap Stam, and a couple of years before that, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ronnie Johnson. Just good signings, and it was mistakes. Karol Poborski, came when David Beckham was on the up, and ultimately Beckham forced his way through and managed to play ahead of him. There were mistakes, but by and large, you got the recruitment right. And that's what's not happened. Lukaku was a mad example, man, because I don't really know what happened where he just fell out of love with whatever was going on at Manchester United. I think he's the most expensive footballer ever for the amount of transfer fees he's accumulated. And I think he's also scored 400 football goals. That's a fucking striker. He should still be here. Because United wouldn't have these issues now. And I spoke about at weekend, you look at the forward line that we had. Cavani, Ronaldo, Mason Greenwood, Anthony Martial as your striking options. And then wingers, you had Rashford, you had Lingard, you had Sancho, you had Dan James, you had Mata. And you look at those 9 players there. Every single one of them is better than what we've got now. Manchester United's recruitment is borderline criminal. And it's going to take more than one window, one signing, 2 signings. I think there's a lot of strength in depth, and I think there's been some good signings in our defence, and there's good players in there. But you've got to find goals. Now, I don't think we're as bad as 16th, 15th, 14th. I think we've absolutely decided that we are going to focus on the Europa League. And I think that was, in hindsight, maybe the right thing to do. Maybe it won't be the right thing to do. Come Thursday next week, we'll know if it was the right thing to do or not. But our journey in Europe, 1,000,000% impacted our ability to perform in the league. 1,000,000%. Now, I know this for sure. The excuses will be over. And the blaming of the manager, the blaming of the owners, the blaming anything external is not going to fly. Come the start of next season, we will be what we are. We will fill Old Trafford again. We will probably still be thinking about needing time. People might need to gel as a squad. Players might need to bed in. But there can be no excuses next season about being 16th. I think if he's 10th, he might go. I think if he's 9th, he might go. The club have come out and said we're targeting a top 6 finish. If that's more than arm's reach away, I think they'll act. And yes, there is a last chance saloon of the final with Spurs, and some reports coming out saying that Ruben Amorim will be kept in charge regardless of how that goes. Okay, that's fair, I think. It's a cup game. But whatever happens, there is context to it. You win the Europa League, you get a trophy, albeit one that people don't fully respect. You grab a backdoor way into next season's Champions League. That helps the club financially, that helps recruit, probably. But it also means you've got to play twice a week and you've got at least 8 games in that group. You will have delivered a trophy. That goes on your CV, alongside some of those losses that we've accumulated this season. But if you don't, it probably makes next season easier. A full week to concentrate on getting the shape, the system, the intensity right. And not being involved in Europe probably makes top 6 a more realistic aim for us. Something that I actually think we could achieve if we didn't have Europe. With Europe, I think you probably split the difference between where we are now and 6th. And that means that you're landing in, 9th, 10th? And that might not be enough. Yes, it depends on signings. It also depends on injuries. And to wrap up, rebuilds do take time. And the one thing that gives me confidence is that the second Ineos took over the football control, they went about appointing the likes of Barada, the likes of Wilcox, and it was more of a statement of intent than we'd ever seen from the Glazers. We never saw the Glazers do anything like that. They just kept it as the status quo. To me, it looks at least that Ineos do care about us being a force on the football pitch. Now, whether they've got the financial ability to be able to deliver that, whether they can get pretty much 9 out of 9, 10 out of 10 transfers right this summer, honestly, I don't know. We can hope, but we don't know. I know this, though. It has to change next season, and it has to start moving in the right direction. Otherwise, Amorim will go, and you will reset the clock on whatever comes next. United have to respond. We have to back the manager. He has to be given time, but he also has to start showing some results on the pitch. You don't just get to be like, well, I don't have perfect circumstances, therefore I'm just going to lose every week. That can't be allowed to happen. At Manchester United, there is a bit of patience here, and I'm kind of glad there is a bit of patience. There's also the usual online sort of hysterical crowd. But the bottom line is, you perform or you pack your bags. The fans, the history, the badge, it demands so much more than what we're getting at the moment out of everybody. From the ownership, to Ineos, to Amorim, to the fucking players. You got to go for it and you got to make it happen next year. The honeymoon period is fully over. We have to deliver next year. Please let me know your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.